Thanks for coming in,
Yeah,
Sarah.
thank
You
you.
know this is not easy stuff to talk about.
Thanks for having me.
It's just one of those, challenging. When can I ask when you lost Lee?
6 years ago, 2019. Yeah.
God, the time, hey?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 6 years
Yeah.
at all. Yeah, it feels like yesterday.
Awful. You are welcome to wear headphones if you want. You don't have to.
Okay.
Whatever feels comfy.
Does
Try-
it
you can try it
do
if you like.
anything?
Or you'll just hear us on mic. You'll hear yourself on mic. You can
Yeah.
give you,
How's
I don't know
that?
if
Is that okay?
That's okay. This one's flipped down a bit.
Maybe I don't want to hear. I hate my voice, so maybe I shouldn't.
Sounds all right.
Oh, it's awful. I feel like Fran Drescher.
That's your volume there.
That's old school. I love that.
Adjust it however you like.
Oh,
If
she's
you don't
great.
like it, you can take them off
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Hopefully I get used to
And
it.
just close up to the mic would be great. Please. Thank you. So we'll do a little intro and then we'll get stuck into the chat if that's all good with you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, here we go. The HBF Run for a Reason. It returns Sunday, May 25. You can choose your reason and set your fundraising goal. Every dollar raised makes a difference. We're highlighting some of the participants in this year's run and talking to them about their reasons, which are absolutely touching our hearts and souls at the moment. Our next guest is Sarah, and her two children, Indy and Ollie, will all be running for various fundraising charities, including the Charlie Teo Foundation, Camp Quality and Lifeline. We understand all three of you have chosen your own. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah? Thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Sarah, I know we've said this is not going to be easy to talk about because we know these are it's a personal story for you, and the reason that you are running and with your kids is that you lost your husband Lee 6 years ago at the very young age of 36. Can you tell us what was happening in your life and what was happening with Lee?
So Lee, there's so much. He was 33 when he got diagnosed. And I guess it's easier to understand maybe the reasons behind why he was diagnosed with brain cancer when you look back and you really analyse what was going on in his life. And he used to work FIFO and he was on shift work. He was like the rest of us. And, in our 20s, before we met, we used to travel a lot, party a lot, and put all the wrong things in our body and probably drink too much. And I think a lot of illness, especially what he was diagnosed with, it comes from a core issue with our bodies not working the way they're designed to work. Mm-hmm. And so it's that build-up of toxins that end up presenting as cancer or some other chronic illness. So I do believe that him being a dad who was working FIFO and then coming back from FIFO to renovate our first home so we could try and get ahead, and then also juggle having a newborn baby and a toddler. It was just nonstop. And I think all parents can relate to kind of just trying to get ahead and trying to make ends meet and being in that bubble. So his mum, I think there's also a bit of a genetic component there because his mum also passed of the same thing 6 years prior. Oh, so I never got to meet her. I think, 6 years prior to me meeting him. And then it was only a few years later that he was diagnosed, and our kids Ollie was about, I think, 2, and Indy was about 4. It's all a bit blurry, and I don't really think it will ever feel like it actually happened.
Yeah, like you've adapted as a family, but that could not have been easy.
No.
And still not.
No, but back then it was very different to the way it is now. I think back then you're riding off adrenaline and you have just a core drive to help the person that you love survive, and it's not just for them or for you, it's for your kids. So it was literally like just from the moment he had his first seizure when we were driving back from a indoor playground with the kids, he was in the car and we almost crashed because he was driving, and lucky his dad was visiting us from over east because he was in the seat, in the driver's seat, passenger seat, and he put it in neutral. And he knew what was happening straight away because he'd seen his mum go through it.
Right.
Whereas I didn't know what was going on because he just was making this weird noise out the window. And I thought maybe someone was being rude or cutting him off. And I thought that's what had happened. And then he started seizing. And luckily when he did, his foot hit the brake. So we didn't actually crash into the Leach Highway traffic.
Wow.
And that was the first, that's how they found it. For most people, that's how they find brain cancer. They'll have a seizure, whether it's an absent seizure where they go blank, or they have a proper grand mal, which is where they shake. So that was pretty traumatic. And
well, also because I suppose it's not only is it a traumatic situation, but I suppose then that begins a journey, and a journey that you don't know what that looks like.
No.
Do they know at the time when they give that kind of diagnosis? What were they saying to you and Lee? Were they saying, like, this is the prognosis, this is what it's going to look like? Did they know that this would be something that would ultimately be the end of his life?
Yeah. When he first presented after that incident, he was rushed to hospital at Fiona Stanley. There they actually mixed up his scans and they came in and said he's all clear. And then 5 minutes later, another doctor came in and said, I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
A student doctor has read that wrong. He actually has a tumour. And he was rushed in for surgery at Charlie's because they're the head of brain cancer and a lot of oncology. And they do have some of the best specialists in the world. And then you get your results about 2 weeks after that, after they biopsy the resection. And that's, for 2 weeks you don't sleep much. You try to stay positive and you're very distracted by the kids and life, and you don't really have time to spend too much time worrying about it until you're in bed. And that's, I guess, when you start ruminating about what could happen. Especially because we knew what happened to his mum. And he also actually had a friend who also died from the same thing. And they died almost a year to the day. Like a lot of people with that glioblastoma, it's terminal. You are very, very, very lucky to last past 12 months. And a lot of people don't realise brain cancer is actually the biggest killer of anyone, any child, any adult under the age of 40. So, but it's one of the most underfunded and under-researched. And that's because there's so little we know about the neurobiology and the neuroscience behind it and the challenges that the brain-blood barrier present when trying to treat something like that. So, sitting down and you never forget that moment. But, it's just sitting there at Charlie's and sorry.
No, not
It's
at all.
okay. You got all the time in the world, mate.
Thanks.
We understand sometimes these conversations can be so hard because it puts you right back in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we've come such a long way, and then as soon as...
But you still have. You still have. You're not going backwards. It's just we understand that, like, I suppose that's why we want to have these conversations because we're trying to save other people's lives. We're trying to do... You're fundraising, you're running, you're raising awareness, you've got your kids involved because that's part of his legacy.
Yeah, I love that you said that because that is like our foundation is, we call it Lee's legacy. So every single thing that we've done since has been to honour his life. And so every person that comes to me with a chronic disease or depression or... Because it's all holistic and everything. We just didn't deal with cancer. We dealt with anxiety, depression, grief. Like, it's so much more than it looks like from the outside. And it really is, like, I think when you lose someone and you go through something like that, you're really aware of why we're here and how fragile life is and just, I guess, how much we really take for granted the simple things like just being free and being safe and having water and having food, but having health.
Yes.
And I know it's like there's that saying you worry about everything until you don't have your health anymore, and then that's the only thing that you worry about It's literally, and that's what it was for 3 years when we tried to keep him alive. And we were lucky to get 3 years. And that was because we just didn't stop researching. We didn't stop talking to people and experts around the world to get different opinions. We looked at conventional, natural, any kind of potential treatment. And it just came back, I guess, to the core belief, and which I think everyone intuitively knows. It's really, you just need to kind of go back to nature and what's natural and letting your body do what it's supposed to do, because it's just not normal to have cancer. And cancer rates are skyrocketing, and it's all been proven to be linked to modern day living, and it's stress and it's chemicals and it's pollutants.
The ingredients lists in all the food we eat and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You brought in a box today.
I did.
With a great project that you and your husband were working on.
Yeah, so he didn't work on that particular one, but he helped the beginning of that company.
Right, so it's healthy food, right?
Yeah, nutritional supplements that aren't synthetic and they're bioactive and alive and actually work with your body.
In that box, Kimber, was a stack of photos.
Yep.
Right, printed out photos, and I'm holding on to 2 of them right now. And I think one of the things that I often think about with these stories, and with someone in particular in your situation or his situation, is how much and how tightly you'd hold on to your kids, knowing that you're not going to be able to enjoy all the amazing things of watching them grow up.
Yeah.
And there's 2 photos in here of him. I'll show you these, Kimber, where he's in the hospital bed.
Oh.
And it looks like he's just had brain surgery. Is that right?
He had 4, and that was after his first.
Yeah. And he's holding on to those
Hugging
kids.
his kids so tight.
And I just couldn't imagine what it would be like to be lying in that bed, holding on to those kids, knowing that there's not going to be much more of that, and you're not going to be able to see them hit the amazing milestones of their 18th and their 21st and all of that sort of stuff, which is why this message is so incredibly important. Make sure so many more people get the opportunity to see their kids grow up.
Yeah.
Sarah, the memories that you have created with your children and the way you reflect on Lee and the life that you have had, the HBF Run for a reason, and the kids' input in that, are they excited to run for him and to raise this awareness and, you know, to highlight their dad?
Yeah, my son's a bit too young. Like, he loves making his dad proud, and he loves anything that it makes him feel more connected to him, or that's something that is in his memory, or where we get to talk about him a bit more than maybe usual.
Yeah.
So they're not too keen on running. So it's sometimes a battle just to get them to try and train with me.
They might be with me and Pete then. Pete and I will look after them. We'll be walking.
Cool.
Prepaid walk, mate. Yep. We've got them looked up. We'll have snacks and everything.
I was going to say, make sure there's lollies or...
Absolutely.
I'm going to leave them with a lolly. But they're my daughter, they're just amazing kids. Like... I actually don't even know how they show up every day without their dad, because I know how much it affects them, and I know how, going through things like this, it's like bittersweet. Like, it's such a beautiful thing to do, but it's also really, it's just reminds us of what happened and what we're missing and the way that life could be. Yeah. And I guess for them, they're at that age now, because they're still really young, but they're still going through the age where they're like really aware of what's around them and other people's family dynamics, and even Ollie at footy, you know, like seeing other dads, and there's little things like that you just are really hard for them. So when you can turn the narrative and make it positive, and that's been really front of centre for me, and it was really important in the way that I tried to manage their grief and the way that we move forward as a family, was really using their loss as their biggest power, because they do have so much more insight and compassion and empathy compared to other kids their age, because they can really relate to other people that have had some kind of adversity, whether it's being homeless or whether it's just being sick, or they've lost a mum, or someone's got cancer in their family. It's they've had to grow up, I think, a little bit earlier than they should, but I think there's always a positive and a silver lining, so I try to teach them that.
There's some wonderful traits in there, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, thanks for coming in and speaking about this. Honestly, because it's these conversations people need to hear. They need to hear what really happens to a family when they're impacted by these diseases and how they can help. The fundraising for these incredible organisations, where can people go and find the links to donate?
So we've got 3 different pages.
Charlie Teo Foundation, Camp Quality and Lifeline.
Yeah. So we've got a page on my website which is linked to the HBF page, and that shows it's actually linked to 3 different pages.
Yep.
And they're through HBF. So my website's edibleearth.com.au. But I think you can go direct through HBF.
Yeah, but if you go there and then that way we can, you can find those pages. And ultimately, I think this is what's so wonderful about HBF Run for a reason is that the money just goes where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, even if you don't get to go directly onto your page and support you guys, it will still, wherever you donate that, it ends up where it needs to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sarah, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All the best for the run, hey?
Thank you. All the best to the other competitors too.